everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing a brush overview video. Some of the brushes that I'm going to be showing you guys today are a little bit dirty because I just finished filming this look here with the husband does my voiceover tag. So I'm gonna link that video down below so that way you guys can watch it if you haven't already. So basically this video is gonna be the basic brushes that you need to complete an everyday look and what each brush's function is, because some brushes have more than one function. So this video was a request for me to do, and I'm really excited because it is my first request, and I hope you guys find this video informative. And if you guys have any other suggestions for any videos in the future, go ahead and leave them down below in the comments, and let's jump right in. So to begin with, I'm going to go over some face brushes. So one of the first brushes that a lot of people tend to gravitate towards is the simple everyday foundation brush. It looks just like this. This one is from Crown Brushes. I will link all the brushes that I talk about today in this video down below, so you can go ahead and check them out. And you know, there's always affordable options to all of these brushes. You don't have to get these exact brushes. Morphe makes some great brushes, and so does e.l.f. There's a bunch of brands out there that you could get some great affordable brushes, and especially starter kits. Those are the best. And this brush in particular is actually part of a set of brushes. So like I said, this is a basic foundation brush. One of the functions is to apply foundation. Another one is you can use this to apply moisturizer, to apply a face mask, and you can also use it to apply primer, which if you watched my previous video, you'll see me doing that. So you can definitely use this brush for multiple things. It kind of just depends on your preference and the way that you want your foundation to look, whether you are going to use it for foundation or if you want to use it for something else. But I really do like this brush for things like moisturizers, like masks, just because it's easy to paint on and you get a nice application. I tend to find these brushes to be a little bit streaky for foundation, but that's just my personal preference. So the next brush I'm going to be talking about is a powder brush. You can get a powder brush from any brand. I like a big fluffy powder brush, and this one as well is from that Crown Brushes set that I can link for you guys down below. It is synthetic and it's super soft. I like the big fluffy brushes, that way you can just really quickly apply your powder without having to spend too much time on that. A next brush that I find to be very essential is a blush brush. Now there are multiple kinds of blush brushes. I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys 3 different ones that I use. The first one is an angled brush. I don't really like using angled brushes for my blush, but that's just because of my face shape. You want to use a brush that works for you. The next kind are the flat top kabukis. I like using this one for cream blushes, and I also like using it for powder as well. I kind of just stipple it on. If I want precise application of my blush, that's what I like using this brush for. The next one is probably the one that I gravitate towards the most. It is from Sonia Kashuk. So it's just a regular blush brush. It kind of looks like the powder brush, but except it is a little bit smaller. That way you're a little bit more precise as to where you're applying the blush. So speaking of angled brushes, I'm going to show you guys what I like to use to contour with. Me personally, I prefer using an angled brush to contour with. I know nowadays people are using the straight brushes, but I like using something kind of like this. It's fluffy, so that way it blends out my contour, but it's nice and small, so you still get really precise and you really get in that cheekbone. The next thing I want to talk about are tools that you can use to apply foundation. Like I stated previously about the foundation flat brush, which was this one here. I personally don't like using that kind of brush. I like using more of the kabuki type of brushes. So it's the ones that are dark and then have white on top. I got a set of 10 kabuki brushes on Amazon. I will link them down below. They are some of my favorites and they have different shapes. I like using different ones for different foundation application. So we have the typical flat top kabuki. This one is good for stippling on foundation, gives you that airbrush look. Me personally, I don't like using this one because I find it to be a little bit streaky. So I tend to gravitate more towards this rounded, angled one. You can still do that stippling there and also blend it in at the same time. So it kind of gives you the best of both worlds. There's also the straight angled one. And then the one that I use to apply my powder foundation is this rounded kabuki brush. I like using it so that way I can buff in my foundation. Another way of applying foundation that everybody is doing is also the sponge. This one is the Real Techniques one. I did just finish using it, so that's why it's a little bit dirty. I like this application method because it makes my foundation look flawless and airbrushed. But the thing I hate about it the most is that it does tend to absorb a lot of the product, so you have to use more than what you probably anticipated on using. Another thing that is super popular are the oval brushes. I like using these for totally different things. If you guys want, I can do a video totally dedicated on these brushes because I don't want to spend too much time talking about all these brushes. The next brush that I'm going to talk about are brushes to highlight. Highlighting is all the rage right now, and one of the brushes that I'm obsessed with is this setting brush here from Real Techniques. You can use this to set your concealer, but I personally like to use it to apply my highlight. It's fluffy, but it's flat at the same time, so the flatness of the brush really helps you get that nice pop for your highlight. Next, let's talk about some eye brushes. Now this is where I get a little bit more in depth. So one of the key brushes that I must have, no matter what look I'm doing, is a large flat shader brush. I like using these kind of brushes to apply my highlight on my brow bone because I do have such a large brow bone area. You can also use this for eyelid color if you would like, but I personally like using the larger ones for my brow bone, and then I'll use a smaller shader brush for the eyelid area. Just to show you what I'm talking about and so that you can see the difference, I'm going to show you 3 different ones so that I can show you the difference between the large and the small ones. So here we have the small ones, and there I have the large one. Let's talk about these 3 really quick. So these 2 have very similar functions. This one's just smaller than this one. It's good for applying matte shades or something that you don't want it to be too pigmented, more of a natural look. While the flat synthetic brush, that's also a small little shader brush, it's good for applying more of those shimmery shades. Synthetic brushes aren't as porous as natural brushes. You can tell the difference because they're not as fluffy. They're a little bit more stiff. Those stiff synthetic brushes, you want to use those for shimmery shades. That way you get the most application. With the fluffier natural brushes, it tends to almost diffuse the eyeshadow, not make it quite as pigmented. Next, for some crease brushes, I like using these fluffy brushes here. This one is a Sigma E40 and this one is a MAC 224. Same exact brush, one's just smaller than the other. Just remember, the smaller the brush, the more detailing you can do with those brushes. You get a little bit more precision with the smaller brush. If it's a larger brush, then it tends to diffuse the look. So that's why I tend to sometimes use a big brush for one thing and a smaller brush for something else, but they're the same exact brush. Another brush that is very essential is a brush kind of like this. So this right here is a crease brush. This one is the MAC 217 brush. This brush, you can actually use it to blend out your concealer, but I also like using it so I can blend out my crease shade, and since it's small and dense, you can really get precise in that outer V. So the next brush is this small little detail brush. I used this in my cool Smokey Eye video. This isn't essential, but I do like these small little tiny brushes to really get in that outer corner, really get nice and precise and add some nice detail. The next brush that we're going to talk about is a pencil brush. I think this brush is definitely very essential for everyday use. You can use this brush to define the outer V. You can use this brush as an inner corner highlight, or you can use it to smudge out the liner. You can also use it to smudge out the liner on top as well, and to add a little highlight to the brow bone. The next brush is a straight liner brush. You can use this to carve out the eyebrows. I also like using it to smudge out my lower lash line, get really precise there, or to smudge out the top lash line. Another smudging brush is the smudger brush. This is a tiny little mini version of a shader brush. It's just more dense, but you can use it to smudge out the lower lash line as well as some eyeliner on top. And then finally, 2 eyeliner essential brushes right here. So this one is an angled liner brush. You can use it to create a winged eyeliner, a regular eyeliner. You can use it to fill in your eyebrows. You can use it for some nice detailing on the bottom, or you can also use it to create a nice cut crease. I've also seen people using a larger version of this brush to carve out their eyebrows as well. And then we have the straight little pencil brush. This is my personal preference on a liner brush, just because I can really get precise and make that nice sharp skinny line. With the angled one, I always feel like it comes out a lot more thicker than I personally would like it to come out. So those are the essential brushes that you need on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, not all of the brushes you would need to complete one look. Some brushes you can kind of cancel out, but I just kind of wanted to show you guys the difference between sizes, shapes, and material. And like I said, I'm going to go ahead and list all the brushes I mentioned down below and link whichever ones I can find. You don't have to use these particular brushes. You can try Morphe, you can try e.l.f. Any of those affordable brands have dupes for these, and you can also get them in brush sets as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys have any requests, please don't hesitate to leave them down below. And until next time.